particularly to support the men and women in law enforcement. And if you remember the summer of 2020, there was a fever sweeping the country. A lot of it was really targeted at attacking the men and women who wore the uniform, the men and women of law enforcement. A lot of the disorder and the rioting that we saw was, in some respects, targeted at the people that wore the uniform. And so there was a movement throughout the country to defund or reduce funding or reduce support for the people that wore the uniform. And in Florida, we said at the very beginning, that is not going to fly in the state of Florida. We're going to stand with the men and women of law enforcement. We did that last summer when all this unrest was happening. I had the National Guard and the state police forces out supporting all the folks in the local areas, handled it very, very well, and we want to thank the people that wore the uniform during that time, which was very difficult. So we've been 100% behind them because we understand all the things that we care about, fighting for economy, education, all these things that are so important. If you don't have safe communities, if you don't have rule of law, law and order, a lot of that stuff isn't going to matter. And so it's fundamental that we have safe communities, and you don't have safe communities if you're not supporting the folks who wear the uniform. And so we're proud in Florida of being a state where people who are in uniform know they're appreciated. They know they have the support, certainly of the governor and the attorney general, but also our legislature and the people throughout the state of Florida. In fact, last year during the legislative session, we felt it was important to show our appreciation for what folks have done, certainly since the coronavirus pandemic, obviously dealing with unrest last summer. And so we were able to secure $1,000 bonuses for every sworn law enforcement officer in the state of Florida. And so that was I think about 60 to 70,000 sworn law enforcement. We also did the fire and the EMTs, the first responders. So we're proud to have done that. And what people would say to me who got the bonuses, it's like, look, the $1,000 is obviously nice. When you're in this profession, you're not necessarily going to be wealthy. So it's nice, but it was much more than the money was showing that the state of Florida supported them and cared. And so we're happy to have done that. And I think it's also worth just reflecting on the first responders that we've shown appreciation for. We're coming up now on the 20th anniversary of September 11th. We actually have some folks here who've moved down from the NYPD to join here in Lakeland. We got one guy that's going to talk, Officer Spoto is going to talk about his experience. But just remember, when 9/11 happened, the people that were running in there were the people wearing the uniforms. They were going in, NYPD, FDNY, Port Authority, and we lost a lot of great people doing that, but they were getting people out of the buildings knowing that they would likely themselves never get out of the buildings. And so anytime something happens, we saw most recently with this crazed guy on drugs in Polk County, you need the folks in uniform to go respond to these crises. And so as we get to the 20th anniversary of 9/11, we got to thank those first responders yet again, and hopefully we don't face anything on that scale ever again in our country, but we know whatever comes down the pike, they'll be there for us. And I think people appreciate people who wear the uniform. They're not asking for accolades or anything. I think they just want to know they have the support of the community, and you have that here. And I think Lakeland PD is interesting, and one of the reasons why we've come here is because as they needed spots to fill on their force, they looked around the country and saw areas where some of these officers were not being treated well, were not being supported. And so they had 12 vacancies they needed to fill. And Assistant Chief Lehman saw the opportunity, and they specifically went to cities where the morale was low in the police force and where they were not getting the full-throated support of the community and of the elected officials. And so they went up to New York City over 3 days. They interviewed a bunch of folks with NYPD, and they were able to hire 13 officers to come down and be law enforcement officers here in the state of Florida. They've also gotten from some other police forces throughout the country. But this is something where you have people that have chosen this profession, and they have an opportunity to come to communities, cities, counties, the state of Florida, knowing that they're going to be appreciated. And so we see an opportunity, given how morale is low throughout many parts of our country amongst people in law enforcement, we have an opportunity to capitalize on that here in the state of Florida, because we do need to fill positions. If you look, I mean, we have a lot of positions overall in Florida for a whole host of things in the economy, but law enforcement is one. I mean, we need to get people in. So we are making a push in this next legislative session to have a package designed for recruiting and retaining good, solid law enforcement professionals. And we're going to have 3 basic programs that are going to help Florida capitalize on this moment and make sure that we have the strongest core of law enforcement personnel anywhere in the country. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to offer a $5,000 signing bonus for anybody who is new to law enforcement in the state of Florida. Now, that may mean somebody who's younger, who decides to go into law enforcement, who's already a Florida resident, but it would also apply to someone moving from another state. So if you come from New York or Seattle or someplace like that, you obviously would get paid whatever they could do, but then the state would then kick in a $5,000 signing bonus. We think that that's a way to draw good talent from within our own state to enter the profession in the first place, but we also think it's a way to capitalize off some of the folks who are not getting the support they need, and to say, you know what, you'll be supported in Florida, and we're also going to make sure that we do our best to make it worth your while. So we think that that's going to be something that will be very, very effective. The second proposal will work in concert with the first and is consistent with what the Lakeland PD has already done. We are going to have a recruitment program that specifically looks to remove roadblocks for out-of-state law enforcement officers looking to relocate to Florida. So the proposal will provide the state officer certification exam free of charge to law enforcement officers relocating to Florida. We will also cover the cost of any necessary equivalent training programs for relocating officers, up to $1,000 per officer. So this is an open invitation for folks in other states to look to Florida as a place where they can not only excel professionally, but also live in a great community like we see here in Polk County. And the third and final proposal is to create a law enforcement academy scholarship program to cover the cost of enrollment for men and women seeking to serve their state and communities through a law enforcement academy. The initiative will remove barriers for motivated, high-quality law enforcement recruits who may not qualify for other state financial assistance through a state college or technical center. For those attending a private academy, an amount equal to the average tuition and fees incurred at a public institution will be covered. We provide support, and rightfully so, for people going to our universities. Why don't we provide support for folks going to law enforcement academies? We are going to be doing that and making sure we're covering our bases. Why is this important? If you look at what some of these communities did by turning their back on law enforcement, by removing funding or cutting funding, you saw almost invariably in those areas steep increases in violent crime. Now, part of that is because they're shorthanded, they don't have the funding they need, but part of it is morale is low, the folks wearing the uniform know they're not going to be supported, and most likely would even be scapegoated if anything goes wrong. So no wonder why you have such poor outcomes in so many parts of our country. We aren't going to do that here in Florida. We're going to make sure that we have supported folks who understand that we've got their back, and we understand that crazy policies like defunding law enforcement has no place in the state of Florida. And in fact, I'm happy when we did our bill, our law enforcement and anti-rioting bill, one of the most important provisions of that bill was to say if any local government tries to defund law enforcement, the state of Florida is able to come and effectively veto that cut and restore the funding for law enforcement. We're not going to let a local government jeopardize their constituents by indulging in some of these failed policies. And so we've got your back here. We have had that for many years. Now comes a time where we think we can bring some really good folks who have great training and have seen a lot, bring some of those folks to Florida with these incentives, and also get more of our young people interested in the profession. not a profession. If you think that no one's supporting you, it may not be something that people want to do. This is showing that we will be here, we'll be supporting you, and we understand how important this function is to safe and prosperous communities. So I'm excited to announce a proposal here in Florida for the first time. I did mention it at the FOP convention in Indianapolis, and I'm happy to have support from the legislature, and I think this will be something that'll be really, really welcome when the session starts next year. I want to bring up our Attorney General, who I know is very happy to hear that we were proceeding along these lines here in the state of Florida. So, Attorney General Moody, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Governor. And thank you so much for those of you that are here to celebrate and shine a light on this amazing announcement today. My family has been in Florida for 5 generations. I have never been more proud to stand here and say, I am a Floridian. I am proud of this state. I am proud of the leadership of Governor DeSantis. As the wife of a law enforcement officer who understands firsthand what it means to take that oath and wear a badge and every day know that it may not go as planned. That's an incredible thing, to sign up for a profession where you're putting your safety behind the safety of others. I'm proud to say, with this governor's assistant and all of these amazing leaders standing with us today, Florida is now the most pro-law enforcement state in the nation. Thank you, Governor DeSantis.
Okay.
And I will tell you, when you look at the nonsensical policies going on right now, we have record numbers of drugs flowing into this nation. We have criminals where law enforcement is being forced to release them based on policies out of Washington. It is incredibly negligent to say we're going to not only slash funding for police, but in some of these politicians' cases, there's bragging about wanting to abolish wholeheartedly agencies. It is idiotic, it is negligent, I believe it's criminal, and that's why we need leaders like Governor DeSantis, who's willing to stand up, propose creative solutions to filling the vacancies that we have throughout our state. There are all kinds of reasons for that. Maybe the officers here might be feeling what's going on, the discourse in our nation, maybe that they're feeling that in their ranks. Maybe we need to ensure that they have financial incentive to look upon law enforcement as a profession that they can provide for their family. But there are reasons we have vacancies. And what I admire about this governor is he's willing to dig into the details, determine why that may be, identify the vacancies throughout Florida, and respond to the needs of law enforcement and the community, and not respond to a woke mob. In Florida, we welcome law enforcement. We hope you will see what this governor is doing in the state of Florida, that we will stand behind law enforcement. You're not only welcomed, your profession will be celebrated as a noble one, and we will make sure that you have the tools and the resources you need to do your job and do them well. So thank you so much.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Assistant Chief Hans Lehman, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Morning, everyone. Again, I would like to thank the Governor and Attorney General for attending and having the press conference here. The legislation that he is talking about, I think, will be huge for most agencies in Florida that aren't doing signing bonuses now. That, I think, is a key to attracting a lot of qualified applicants for us. And I was asked to speak a little bit about our recruiting problem that we had. And it's nationwide and statewide, but we have deficits, and we're trying to fill these deficits. And we've done everything from targeted media advertising, social media. We have a full-time recruiter that visits every academy in the state twice a year, and we knew we still needed to do more. And with everything going on, we talked about it this past spring, and we said, let's try to do an actual out-of-state recruiting trip, not just outside of Florida, but way outside of Florida. And we sent a crew of 7 up to New York City. We decided on that one because there's 30,000 plus officers in that area. So we knew that we could target that area pretty heavily and pretty quickly. We spent 3 days up there and spoke to probably close to 300 officers from varying agencies at a hotel. And it was amazing. Every one of them still wants to serve. They still want to be a police officer. They still want to serve. And we had over 100 of them apply and went through backgrounds. Some couldn't come over right now. They need to wait till next year. But as it stands right now, we're starting 6 on Monday, and then another 6 will start in October and one after that. So like the governor said, 13 officers will be starting here at Lakeland by the end of the year, and that will get close to filling us up. And that is a huge effort by our background team and by the department, and got a couple other chiefs in the room, and they know that hiring is hard right now. And just like the governor said, it's hard, and that's what we did. Is we tried to go a little bit outside the box, and that was the story for us. Is we took our recruiting on the road, and we had a great success with it. And I think the signing bonuses will only help even more with that. With that, I will turn it over to Officer Matt Spoto. He's starting with us on Monday from New York City.
Good morning, everybody. Again, my name is Matthew Spoto. I just want to start out by telling you a little bit about how I heard about the Lakeland Police Department. I originally heard about them on Facebook. They were doing a recruitment process in, I think, Times Square. I just happened to be there, went up for a training that I was there for. So I stopped by, I sat down with a dedicated team of background investigators of the Lakeland Police Department, and they were just telling me a little bit about life in Florida. I mean, it was an eye-opener. He said that you could park your police vehicles in front of your house. And to me, I thought that was mind-blowing. I used to have to lie about what I used to do. I used to have to tell people I was like a bartender, because it was almost like I was ashamed to be a law enforcement officer. And the fact that the governor did the $1,000 sign-on bonus for law enforcement officers, it really spoke to me. I think everybody, regardless of the career that you chose, you want to be appreciated at what you do. It doesn't matter what job you do. So I knew as soon as I saw the governor making all these strides to bring all these law enforcement officers down here, I knew this is where I wanted to be. And I'll tell you that I'm very excited for this next chapter of my life. And I really appreciate all the hard work that everybody does down here.
Can you just tell them about when you first got into NYPD and how many years you were there? And
Sure.
just explain some of the stuff you
Yeah,
were involved
sure.
in?
So I was only in the NYPD for about 2 years. When I was there, I realized very quickly that the job was not what I expected, only because I wanted to do all these things to help people, and the tools and the laws that were set in front of me did not allow me to do so. So looking into other options, knowing that I still wanted to be in law enforcement, knowing that I still wanted to help people, I wanted to see what I can do to progress my career. And I'm happy to say that I found a home in Florida.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you,
Congrats.
everybody. I appreciate it, sir.
Thanks. Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
He's not the only one that's made the move to Florida recently, but we're excited. I think Lakeland has really done a great job, and we hats off to them. And I think once this becomes reality, is going to provide help to a lot of different law enforcement agencies throughout the state of Florida. I mean, it would apply here, it would apply at the Polk County Sheriff's Office, it would apply to any of these places. And we figured that there were, we looked at kind of how many vacancies we expect and what could happen. And so we think this is something that'll really make an impact, and quite frankly is not going to be a major budget item, all things considered. And so we're happy to be able to do it. We're happy that folks want to view Florida as a place where you can have this career and be appreciated. And again, the money is one thing. And everyone wants to make more. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think the bonus that we did, $1,000, and I think the same with this signing bonus, it's more of just showing people that we appreciate what you're doing, and then we care about you, and we want you to succeed here, and we understand how important it is to have good men and women in this profession. So God bless everybody, and we'll get this done hopefully early on in the next legislative session. Okay, anyone? Questions about this or anything?
Is there anything you'd want to say for the Lakeland police officers that did respond to that quadruple murder, really a horrific weekend in this area?
Yeah,